conversation is building on the foundation of digital engineering for an intelligent enterprise. Over the last decade, digital engineering has transformed the way organizations build products, modernize platforms, and deliver customer experiences. Today, with AI accelerating every aspect of business, the conversation has evolved. The question is no longer whether organizations should adopt AI, but how they can combine strong engineering foundations with intelligence to create lasting business value. At Innovate, we believe AI is most powerful when it is built on robust digital engineering. Engineering provides the foundation, AI amplifies it. Together, they enable organizations to become truly intelligent enterprises where data, technology, people work seamlessly to drive innovation, better decisions, and meaningful business outcomes. Today's discussion is an opportunity to hear from our leaders on how they see this evolution unfolding, what it means for our clients, how our own organization is transforming, and most importantly, what each of us can do to remain relevant and continue growing in this rapidly changing landscape. Joining us today from our India leadership team are Naresh Raj Gururaj, Shishir Saxena, Kiran Susarla, and Prashant Halu. Leaders who have been at the forefront of driving this transformation, they bring diverse perspectives from engineering, delivery, innovation, and business. Looking forward to an insightful session. Our moderator for this fireside chat, Shishir, will take it from here.
So I think as Praveen has outlined, right? So we're trying to figure out the relationship between digital engineering and innovation and what that looks like in the era of AI. While we four are here on the, so to say, podium, but this is a lived experience for all of you, right? What we will talk about is a lived experience for all of you. So as we go through the questions here, I would request all of you to also raise your hands if you have a follow-on point or if you want to add something from your lived experience about the subject we're talking about. Let this be a, kind of like a combined learning experience versus a talk. So with that, I get started. My first question for you, Naresh, is that we've always seen digital engineering to be one of the key drivers of what we call as innovation or success or rapid growth of organizations, right? So this whole thing of digital has been a driver for growth in many aspects and also for innovation. Now, so we have this thing happening where digital continues to take more and more of mind share, wallet share of the spends of the organization. And now we have the superpower of AI also coming in. How do you see the relationship between digital engineering and AI at a, I would say, 20,000 feet level, right? So just to get the conversation started, how do you see this thing happening?
See, I think in my view, digital engineering is become more important. Digital engineering today has become more important than ever before because it is the foundation. When I say digital engineering, it's the data, it's the connections, the APIs between the systems, it is the entire app ecosystem, and it is the ability to have a strong foundation on top of which AI has to be built, right? So we have been involved in so many projects in the last 2 years. Everybody have jumped at projects and we have seen challenges because these foundational elements have been shaky. And we have not been able to drive some key outcomes from a business outcome standpoint. So it is very important right now to make sure that these digital engineering basics or foundations around data, around connectivity, around architecture and availability are built very strongly so that the AI which sits on top is able to drive those business outcomes. So to kind of summarize, it is the most important element, the foundational element which we have to focus on and drive our clients towards that as we try to deploy AI for them. It's not just chasing pilots or POCs. We have to now scale. And digital engineering is that foundation, in my opinion.
Very well said, very well. I think it's a good base for us to build on for this conversation. So one of the funny things, right? So you start searching something in YouTube, the recommendations also quite aligned to it, right? So of late, the recommendations at my house are all about what is AI and how it's impacting. Right? Even my kids are now getting pissed off because they will search for some singer or whatever, but they come back, their feed also has the same thing. So this is the impact of AI at a household level, right? But then one of the things that they say about AI is it's underappreciated, overhyped. And what that means for enterprises is that many people claim to be doing something about it, but most are not seeing the business value being extracted from it. So Prashant, if I bring you in the conversation, right? So from your perspective, what is it that separates organizations that are just merely experimenting versus the ones who have actually seen the light of the day from a business value perspective?
Yeah, I guess I'd probably take a cue from what Naresh was saying. So today, digital engineering, which is founded on data, cloud, it's now going to the AI world, right? And right now, I would probably say it's at an inflection point. And every organizations are probably at different levels of maturity. Okay, somebody is, gone are the days where we talked about automation, productivity improvement as the cases. But right now, I think AI has the capability where it can really start driving business outcomes. And when I mean that, again, the adoption rate is probably at different levels of maturity. Meaning, I would probably look at, when we look at a portfolio of clients, right? They are at different levels of maturity. Some of them are actually in the legacy world. They're probably, when we started our careers, legacy was mainframes. Client desktop was probably the new age, and then the entire web applications was the new age. Now today, entire web applications are legacy. And today, how things are transforming is, I don't need to probably. You're probably all familiar with using chatbots. You ask a question and you get a response, right? That's the bare basic use case of how AIs are. And that's probably what organizations are today implementing and started to develop. Okay. But again, if you look at the underlying technology, right? Applications are still run on entire architecture. They're probably still on premise. They're not moved to the cloud. Organizations are shifting to it. That's one end of the spectrum. Okay. You probably have another end of the spectrum where, like they say, right, EV first. Organizations have gone for AI first. I would probably build anything and everything on AI. Okay, whatever be the underlying infrastructure, in terms of data being available, it's on the cloud and it's available for me to actually harness. Is already that's the level. While this is the business context of how enterprises are actually doing, we'll probably, as the discussion goes, we'll actually talk about how you need to really set up and configure your organizations to operate it, right? But I would say that there are different levels of maturity, and you need to probably, and again, I'll probably speak now in the context of Innova. We might have clients engaging on both ends of the spectrum, okay? But I think what is important for us is how do we understand their situation, their ecosystem, and then start leading them through the way of getting them, into the AI world. And I think that's the key and important thing. And I probably say that different levels of maturity can be transformed, and that's what I would say in this given context is where we all need to kind of step up and take that. And I probably take an example, right? Automation and productivity is one part, but right now you're talking about predictive maintenance. Today, if you're in the job market, right? If you're you're in a portal where you're actually searching for jobs, you're not looking for how to go and do a job matching. You're actually looking for to say that how can the AI provide me solutions where it can give me exactly saying that of these n number of positions, go and actually work on these 5 that can actually give you more results and be more revenue driven rather than just being you're actually spreading your efforts across all. So I think that's what I would probably say. I think as we go along, we can probably talk about it.
So maybe just a couple of other things, right? So what we are seeing, and this is because we've been working with multiple customers, right? So I think the last 2 years when this AI conversation became very mainstream, we've had leaders who talk about AI as, hey guys, everybody seems to be doing it, I also want to do it, right? So there are these people who feel that they're left behind and they just need to do something in AI because they want to show their boss or the board about it, right? And there are those people who natively understand the impact of that technology or this transformational dimension, and they're changing the wiring of that organization from the inside to take the the impact of it the right way. So the term I like to use is you can either use AI in point solution ways or point impact ways, or you can make it the scaffolding of your organization. If you use it as the scaffolding of your organization, you are built to leverage it, right? So you can look at workflows instead of point impact. So when you look at entire business workflows, the ability for an organization to generate value is much higher because you set out to solve a business problem, you don't set out to solve an AI problem. So framing of the problem statement itself at an organizational level becomes very important. So with that, Kiran, I'll come to you, right? So you've been speaking to multiple customers in different states of maturity. You've spoken, in your role, you speak to people who are just starting the journey, or they are quote unquote brick and mortar old school kind of customers, right? So do you see with the advent of AI, people are far more focused on outcomes versus effort, right? So how has the client started to look at technology and their investments into technology when the way between outcomes versus effort required to do it? What has been your experience? Maybe you can give an example without making it.
Sure, I think that's a pretty good thing, right? So, in all of us here, the average experience is 10 years, right? The first thing when we start engagement, it says like, hey, how many people we need, what is the effort, right? Always the conversations were going in that direction. But of late, the conversations are not that, right? It is always more on the outcomes. What outcome I'm going to get, right? If I'm using AI, right, in my solution, what is the outcome and how quick I can get the outcome, right? And the thing becomes like, what problems are we solving, right? And what is the outcome of that? It is not the discussion about any effort, saying like, hey, this is the effort I need, right? It's all the outcome oriented, right? And the thing comes, right? Every client, especially in the service industry, are expecting like what outcome we are giving to them, and then what problems are we solving, what business problem they are solving, right? It's not just I understand the technology. The expectation is along with the technology, what is the business, how deep I understand the business problem, right? And that's expected from each and every individual working in that engagement, right? Any engagement today if we take, right? For example, if I take the largest engagement in our organization to the smallest engagement, right? All clients are the same, but the underlying principle is the same. What outcome we are delivering to them and how much the team is available. That's in a simple one-liner.
Sure. So Naresh, I know you've been leading the conversation with one of our strategic customers where we are actually building what we call as AI pods, which are taking up use cases for the client and delivering business value. So clearly that is an example of a client that has moved away from adopting the technology versus being focused on what value we are driving. If you can just share for the audience, right? What has been that journey like speaking to the customer? How have they really gone about changing their strategy to focus on outcomes versus merely adopting AI? That could be probably a good one.
Sure, I think see the underlying fundamentals are the same. So we started deploying. So I'll step behind. I'll step back in time, move away from AI. So let's go to the era of continuous improvement. So back in 2005, 2006, we started focusing on how do we do things faster, how do we do things cheaper. So it could have been a quick fix like putting an SQL query or building a macro, or it could be introducing some automation to do things faster. So that then drove certain outcomes, and then that had to be kind of spread out culturally. So the focus was always in terms of how do we build a culture of continual improvement? How do we show the benefits of something which is done in one place and make that an institutional culture? Second is how do we start focusing on investing any effort on moving towards an outcome, an ROI. At the end of the day, if you spend X dollars, you need to get back more than that, and it has to be within a certain payback period, right? It cannot, you cannot invest $100,000 in 16 weeks, and you cannot wait for 3 years for a break even and then additional benefits. By then, landscape would have changed. So essentially, anything which is a good business case, the payback has to be within 6 to 7 months. So coming back to your question, right? It was those improvements first, then it was RPA. Now we are talking of AI. The point I'm trying to get is the way we have moved into these conversations with our client is being able to help them build the foundation of understanding and identifying a good business case. So everybody wants to jump at AI, but it has to be a very focused effort. So we have built frameworks. We call it the E3 assessment framework, where we are essentially helping, to keep it very simple, we are helping the clients identify the ease of automation, whether it is easy, how easy or difficult it is to automate something, and the business benefits from it. Are dollars saved, or costs avoided, or fines avoided, or any other business outcome. It could be either a top one where you are pushing and generating revenue, or it could be the bottom line where you have saved cost and delivered a better outcome. So building the framework, helping them understand it, and using that as the basis for identifying business use cases which are good candidates has been one aspect of it. Second is the cultural part. Being able to create a central team. So, there is a distributed model, there is a centralized model. Sometimes you could even do a hybrid model. So, somebody could experiment in something in one part of the organization, it might yield benefits. Another part could use a completely different technology and they might get benefits or it might be a failure. The point is everybody is now starting to create some debt in terms of trying to duplicate effort. So we have helped create the process of assessment, also create the process of creating centers of excellence where you have a unified effort, you have the right team, you have the business SMEs, you have the right business analysts, you have the architects, solution architects who all come together and create a centralized effort to use the assessment framework as the basis, but also design a solution which can then be scalable, which is like the enterprise brain, right? So you build components which can then be deployed across the organization to drive faster benefits in the future projects. So you are now involving the entire team in the process of identifying and building these solutions. And it's a more coordinated effort, and the culture of trying to have a structured and a need to drive these use cases becomes more a cultural aspect, right? That is very important. And the third thing obviously is being able to provide the firepower. That is where the engineering parts come in, right? So either it could be a combination of our client team members who are actually the subject matter experts and their engineering muscle, but we are also providing the pods of forward deployed engineers where we are equipping them. It's a combination of an architect, developers, and the testing team, which is getting embedded as a part of the larger team to move that idea, which we feel on paper can deliver benefits, to actually implement it and then track the actual benefits and report it back, right? At the end of the day, the CFO has to sign off saying, yes, we've seen benefits. We've seen a revenue increase, we have seen a cost saving, or we have seen some other business impact. So to kind of summarize, these are the three elements. One is help build an institutional process to identify, assess, and identify the right use case. Institutionalize it across the organization with a common technology platform, with a common foundation and a common approach, or the brain for that matter. And then the third aspect is being able to provide support in terms of the engineering muscle to, and even the business context, which is where the BAs come in with specific context of the process for the client from the industry they belong to. And then this combination delivers the project and drives actual tangible outcomes for our clients. So that's been our approach. And we've been engaged in multiple pieces through this journey, but right now we are at a stage where we are getting engaged across, and that's where we are seeing maximum benefits.
Excellent. So I think you touched upon a very important part, which is what does it mean for individual roles that we have in our organization to be effective in this new context, right? So my next question is more on that, and I will probably bring in the two practitioners from an engineering perspective here for that conversation, right? Prashant, you and Kiran, you both can have your own points to weigh in on. With all of this happening, all of these changes that we are seeing, right? So how do you see the role of the engineer change in the organization? Because at the core of it, we are an engineering organization. We are building engineered products and platforms for our customers. How is the role of that engineer changing? There are different aspects to it. It's the ability to problem solve, comfort with technology, comfort with tooling, whatever it may be, right? For this era to be successful, how is that role evolving? Maybe Prashant, you can start and Kiran, you can hold on.
Yeah, I'll take this question in two parts. First one, right, before we get into the individual impact, right? I think what is important to understand is how is the organizational construct, in this changing world, in the transforming world, right? When we talked about digital engineering, the definition is kind of changing. Where you talked about earlier days, data, cloud, applications, and all of that, right? And today, how AI is playing that role, right? But fundamentally, if you look at digital engineering, I would probably call it as the operating system for innovation, right? So with that broad context, now what you probably need to appreciate is, I'll probably take what Ganesh was trying to highlight, right? When you go to a customer and try to solve use cases, right? Meaning today there are thousands of problems in the organization that needs to be solved, right? Now, would you boil the ocean and solve everything at once, or you actually handpick an area by area, right? And I think that's what he was probably talking about. You probably focus on a specific use case, okay, and try to see how do we put the team composition in place, right? And I would probably say, well, he actually talked about the individual roles, right? The architect, the business analyst, the RP engineer, and so on and so forth. Today, I think with the leverage that we have with AI, I think the tool sets, the technology also play a big role and part in that one, right? So we'll come to the individual part, but quickly I want to share my thoughts on the overall enterprise. He used a word called enterprise ontology. And today I would probably say it's used as enterprise ontology, or you can also call it as the AI brain, okay? And I'd probably say there are 6 different components. Okay, first one is how do you build that business vocabulary? Okay, when I say business vocabulary, today I go and let's take take any of the organizations. We call customer, client, subscriber, user. So different nomenclatures that are used, for the overall thing. So how do I actually build that vocabulary that is actually common for everyone to understand? So when I say a client, so for example, where we call practices as studios. Okay, some others call as practices, somebody calls it as horizontal and all. So building that vocabulary is one fundamental thing, right? So while you have that, so that becomes a base foundation. So this, in a way, is also an enabler for AI to understand the overall enterprise context. Okay, and that's important. Okay. The second thing comes is how do we actually connect business capabilities? When I say business capabilities, let's say if you take a banking, right? I have retail banking, commercial banking as LOBs, right? But each of those LOBs actually builds certain capabilities. So for example, you are building an onboarding platform for customer onboarding, you have a CRM platform, you do KYC verification, these are all capabilities. And how are these capabilities rendered? These capabilities are rendered through your applications, right? You can have an onboarding application, which is again controlled by a particular team, and that particular team is actually reporting to a particular business unit. So it's an IT team, and the team is made of people. So if you look at the overall capabilities itself, it's a construct of these business units, the capabilities that they build, and the team structure. Then there are 4 things, right? A process, data, technology, and program. Okay, I'll talk about process, right? So if I take a process, today a customer has an account, okay, and an account is actually is a product. It's owned by a certain line of business, and then transactions happen. Okay, so this is how the overall process is there. So if I take an example of, let's say if I were to do a customer onboarding, what I have to do, I have to actually gather the information, I have to do a KYC check, I have to probably run a risk score, then I have to get an approval. It could be a systematic or a manual approval. So this is the entire process flow. Okay, I need to map out these processes across the organizations to say that how do I actually build a process. So these are basically the feeders for your, I'll call it as digital engineering, but I really mean to say digital engineering with AI, because that's where AI can bring in that power of contextualizing that for your organization needs. Okay, that's a process I need. Let's talk about data. You go to a database, you go to the customer table has customer ID as a key, right? And a customer again has a product. So these are all relationships. So now today, AI has the ability where it can start understanding these contexts as well, because it can understand how the data is structured, and that basically becomes your data lineage. So it can actually know from the master table to the child table to reference entities and all that. So that becomes the data part. Then you come to the technology, meaning I think you probably less spoke about it because that's thing. And when you come to the program management part of it, I think this is now a combination of people versus tools and technologies. So this, in the broader context, is where the enterprise lies. Now to your second part of the question, right, where how does an individual need to start playing that role in an AI setup, is where engineers need to have this broader context and within their own spaces of whether they are actually a developer or they're a database designer or they're an architect or a business analyst, they have these different roles to play. And I can probably add on, but I'll probably give that to you to see, Kiran, if you want to add on, and I can add in
Sure.
something else.
No, that's the right thing, right? So till now, anytime when we are doing the coding and all, right? So we always have to remember in the olden days when we started, then the Google came and then people were using, right? So now we don't need to do as long as we
Then
have the-
GitHub repositories came in after that.
Correct, right? So in the today's world of things, right? I'll stick to the same answer that I gave. If you have the right business problem, what are we solving, and give the right context, AI will give us that leverage, right? How we can solve the problem. So AI is an assistant. We are the owners. If we are not telling what to do to it, it will take its own decision, and then we all have to implement it as an engineering, right? So as long as we provide the right business context to it, and then whatever the tool it is, and if we give the right things, the solutions will be amazing, right? That's how I'll keep it in a simple way.
So I'll add a few things, even though I'm moderating, but I'll probably step in here. Fresh battle scars, right? So AI accelerates. AI also accelerates failure, right? So just because you're accelerating something does not mean you are heading in the right direction. That is my number one, I would say, learning in the last 2 years of riding this wave, hype cycle, whatever you may call it. And what does it make for the individual? The core principles of engineering are timeless, right? Putting in clean code, understanding the impact on the enterprise architecture of your code, making sure that the ground rules of performance of your application, latency between different components, all those ground realities are sacrosanct. You still build around that core foundation of what good engineering principles are. Just because now you have a means of speaking in a easier language or English language to command the code to be generated does not mean that it is generating the right kind of code. So the biggest thing that I have seen from an engineering perspective is the ability to be very, very pure in your discipline is much higher now, because there are lesser number of humans looking at it, more number of machines looking at your code. So the human, however small the entity is or involvement is, has to be rock solid. That's number one. Number two, the validation and the QA cycle before something goes into production has to be even more tighter, both using AI as well as the human intervention, because you cannot push things out just because it seems right on a particular environment or a particular scale before you actually have somebody expert figuring out what will it do in the production environment. So the bottleneck has shifted, and I'm quoting here a paper written by a very renowned industry leader called Francisco de Souza, is that the bottlenecks of our engineering processes have shifted. Earlier, the time taken used to be on writing, building or generating that code base. Now it is about validating, integrating and seeing what it does to the overall picture. So the bottlenecks have shifted, but the core engineering principles have not. So I just want to add that part apart from everything else that you mentioned.
Yeah, that goes back to the foundation part I was talking about.
Absolutely.
The time from idea to production ready code has compressed. And from a developer perspective, right, you're moving to becoming an architect. That's what he spoke about in terms of connectivity, in terms of impact, in terms of performance. So those are the most, and we have learned we've seen so many engagements now, and we have learned that getting those foundations right is the absolute key to the success. Otherwise, AI will just amplify the underlying challenges.
Absolutely, very true. It will amplify whatever dysfunction existed in the org, just make it faster, right? So let's move to the next question. I don't know how we are doing on time. Should I have like 3 or 4 more questions in the background? Okay. So I'll move to the next question, which is about we as an organization. Innova as an organization has been at the forefront of imbibing this change of AI and also being relevant for our customers, right? So starting with you, Naresh, and then you can talk about industry overall. How have we embraced AI effectively? What have been some of the battleground stories that we have come across, Naresh, if you can share that, while keeping our digital engineering core at the heart of it, right? So what has been our journey? You can talk about a few things, I'll add, team can also add.
Sure, I think one of the key things we have consciously done is in the entire SDLC process, we have had a very focused effort to embed AI in the SDLC process. When I say that, right from requirement gathering, to building user stories, to monitoring the progress, to building and compiling code. Through the process, we have brought in tools at each stage, which is, as I said earlier, accelerating the entire process of going from idea to production ready code. On top of it, we have made a very conscious effort for our team to get equipped to shift from being a developer to being that architect, right? You're no more writing code, but you have to very carefully audit, understand the impact, and make sure that whatever hallucinations or whatever else AI is throwing at us, we are able to fix that and not only audit the quality, but also contextualize it to the end product we are building. So there's been a very conscious effort in terms of trainings and certifications, which has helped our team make this shift. So if I have to summarize it, we are moving away from just doing hours and hours of writing requirement documents to building user stories to writing code, to being more of an architect where we are auditing these and we are able to take it faster to the market. So that's been the shift, and we have consciously embedded tools and also trainings in this entire journey.
Okay.
That's on the engineering side. Yeah.
Anything more?
Yeah, so like any other organization, right? So in the SDLC, we took that in the initial stages, right? In chunks, right? Not in all the phases, but we took some cautious things like, okay, in this phase, we'll see how it helps us, right? Whether it's on the testing side or the low hanging side, right? On the requirement side. And then now we are seeing, right? In the beginning of this year or last quarter of 25, we made it mandated, like saying across all the phases of SDLC, this is mandated. So today, if you see any engagement we are starting, or like for the current engagements which are going on long term, once a logical milestone is completed, it is mandated that we have to follow these steps, right? Because we now have the enough context, enough skill to you how to use that. And then as Naresh said, right, a lot of the teams have undergone the trainings and the certifications, right? So now everybody knows how to use AI in their respective areas, and then we are able to take it further, right? And I think in the very few days, we will be definitely above the market or at par with all the other organizations that we have the foundation.
So I'll probably give a very ground level example of this from a talent perspective, right? So what is it doing to our talent management and talent hiring practices? When I joined this firm about 2.5 years back, right? So that I think we had a batch of freshers joining in from college. We had people in different years of experience, etc. Over the years, if I look at because I work with Deepu, who's our BPHR lead for the studio, and we keep looking at how the talent is evolving, right? So we are seeing that in two sections, I am seeing a concentration build up, which is lead and above. So the experience layer, I'll not put a number of years of experience to it, I'll rather put it expertise. And we are extremely strong adapters. They could be a 2-year-old experienced guy, 5-year-old, I don't care. But the individual should be a very fast adapter of technology tools, etc. The carrying and forwarding agents, sorry to use the term, the middle layer, which was merely just taking the stuff from one and giving to the other, or being the conduit of information, I would call them engineering generalists, right? Without domain knowledge. So there are engineering generalists which have domain knowledge. There are engineering generalists which are just being that middle layer. We are seeing that layer completely collapse. The value that an engineering generalist adds is minimal in an AI scaffolded engineering process. I need extremely sharp people who are technically senior, experienced, are thinking at an enterprise level, and I need extremely strong people who can actually do the things on the ground, and the rest of it can be taken care of by good AI scaffolding. So that's how the talent is evolving. That's why our investment is in bringing people who are really experts and can be that human in the loop that is required to keep the process true. So the role of architects, the role of staff engineers, senior staff engineers, lead engineers is becoming tantamount to being an architect, as you were mentioning, right? Because they're orchestrators. They're not just mere doers. Okay. This is a good question. I think you should all weigh in from your vantage point, right? So, since the unit of engagement is changing, what we deploy for our customers, right? The roles, etc. What does leadership? And I'm not saying leadership has to be only after X number of years. What does leadership mean in this AI first world? Right? All of you can put in, your thought process into the play. Sean, maybe
I can go first.
Please
I think it's an interesting part of the conversation. I was talking with Amit, who was interviewing for this job, right? And you're asking me how familiar are you with AI, right? And I said, yeah, I've used it, I've done ChatGPT, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, great. But if you're going to lead an AI team, right, are you hands-on? I said, no, I was hands-on, but I can do one. And then that's how it happened, right? So, there was some thought that I always had that I had to build something. So one day I actually sat and I downloaded Cursor, I downloaded Codex, started building my own. I gave a prompt to actually create a personal expense tracker. Okay? And I was actually amazed. I probably about half a day, I actually built an application without writing a single piece of code. Okay, I didn't even write one line of code. Okay, I just gave a prompt. It created the plan. It understood what I was trying to accomplish, right? And then it started designing the application. It started developing the application. It created the user interface. It did the overall testing, and it actually finally gave it a finished product. Okay. The reason I'm actually giving this example is, right, today if you ask to the question about, I think I'll combine this question with the other question about what should engineers do today in their roles from the same level, right? As leaders or engineers, right? I think we're not going to compete with AI. We're going to collaborate with AI so that we can actually get to the desired outcome. Meaning, I would probably ask the same application if I were to be given this project for me to size and deliver. I would do the same thing. Architect is required, BA is required, developers are required, testers are required, deployment engineers are required. Do my effort estimation, come up with a number, and then go back and then say, okay, this is what it is. But I could actually do it in like hours, right? That's a significant shift that we all need to start understanding and embracing. And today, I think that customers would start expecting us to do, and that's where today they don't care about whether you're doing with AI or whether you're doing with people. What is the outcome that you can give me, and by what time, and with what effort, and not even effort. What is the cost that I have to pay for this? I think that's a fundamental shift that we all individuals, right, in today's world, we have to go through. It doesn't really matter with respect to leaders or engineers. I would say that you need to have that ability to learn. Okay, you have to have that appetite, saying that I want to learn every new day, everything something new. I think that's the first fundamental quality. Of course, given that your fundamental skills, right, whether you come from a technical background or whether you come from a HR background or you come from an infra background, your core skills are already there. Okay, how do you make that to good use? With the combination of AI. I think that's where actually the key is. I think if you can really work on it, start working, probably spending 2 hours a day, learning something new, and how can you start making your life easier? I think that fundamental shift can really make a big impact for you as an individual as well as to our customers. I think that's basically what I would say.
2 hours out of 24 or 26?
I mean, it's always 24, right? You can have, if it was 26, then it could be always 50 also. So it's
Sorry, here we
we
actually
are,
have 26.
we are basically a little bit time zone agnostic for the last few weeks. So
I know.
sorry, I had to skip that question.
No, all this will happen, but I think point is, you should carve out that time, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's what will happen.
I didn't want to be little bit wrong. Sorry. Kiran, what is from leadership in this era
See,
at any level?
yeah, so leadership today it is more in the coming era, right? It is just to take the decisions and guide the team. That's all, right? Not like I'll sit in the boardroom, I'll tell that, right? All of us are hands-on, right? As we speak, we are doing the firefighting, we are all coming out of the call. So everybody here needs to be hands-on, and with AI coming in, that will be more helping us, right? To take the decisions faster, and we can't say, hey, we don't know what is happening, right? For everybody, they have to be hands-on, and the leadership is only decision making. That's why I'm emphasizing that, right? Otherwise, there is nothing. There is no role like I'm a general manager or I'll be just doing the people management. I'll track my schedule and all. That's not needed. There are quite a number of tools for that, and everybody has to be hands-on if you are an engineering company and if you call ourselves as engineers. In a simple one-liner, that's what I would say.
Nice.
See, I think it's very simple for me. Leadership is when you're leading an organization or when you're leading a team, when you're dealing with innovation, being able to cannibalize the status quo, the current is of paramount importance, right? So we have been an industry where we have always thrown bodies at business problems. the days of doing that are simply over.
Yeah.
Okay, it is history. We can't do that anymore. So we have to now figure out if it is a business process you're managing, how do we move away from FTE based billing, time and material billing to outcome based billing? How do we embed AI in processing a business transaction for our client where human in the loop is only managing exceptions? And how do we have a commercial model for our client which helps drive larger savings for them, at the same time helps drive larger profitability for us? So that is the one shift. From an engineering perspective, how do we deliver the solution, how do we deliver the code faster? Right? If we were taking 30 weeks earlier, how do we do it in 10 weeks? And how do we pass on the benefits to them as well as be profitable? So it's a great opportunity for a win-win situation. Build something faster, deliver something faster, drive outcomes, at the same time you are also more profitable. So this is not a situation where we are threatened. This is a great opportunity for us to have a mindset of cannibalizing the entire model on which the Indian IT services industry has been built. So that's the first mindset. So everybody have to think, right from the CEO of the organization to the fresher who is joining from college should have this, right? That is one thing. Second thing goes to what my co-panelists have been talking about, being hands-on. Being a Lean Six Sigma practitioner from very early days, for me it is about going to the Gemba, right? If you guys have heard that terminology, Gemba is the shop floor, right? In Kaizen, Gemba means shop floor. If you are a manager, if you are a leader, you can't sit in an AC cabin on one corner of the floor and try to either understand a problem or identify an improvement. You have to roll up your sleeves, be on the production floor, see what is happening, and then identify a solution to a problem or identify an opportunity to further improve if things are going well. So why I'm telling this is being hands-on, doing things yourself, going to the Gemba, sitting with the developers, sitting with the architects is very important as a leader to understand what are the practical challenges and how to help the team overcome those, how to equip them. And how do I convey this to my client so that, success, collectively we are successful. So these are the two most important things according to me a leader has to do. Cannibalize, continuously cannibalize with AI is evolving, right? By the time we finish this discussion,
Something you would
new tool would be there, which would actually turn this entire thing on its head. So being able to rapidly adapt and cannibalize continuously the way we are operating, and also being able to be on the Gemba, be on the floor, be with your people and help them adapt to the change is of extreme importance. These are the two key things we have to continuously do. Otherwise, we will be irrelevant.
So I'll just add my few things. A lot has been already said. For me, I think leadership in today's era means what it meant for me when I remember starting working, right? It is number one, zero ego, because just by having years of experience or seniority does not make you a better professional, a more knowledgeable professional. We are in an era of boundless knowledge. So the guy next to you who may not come from the same industry, etc., can come up with a winning idea. Just a case in point, AWS recently had a hackathon of how they can use native AWS AI architecture to build applications. The hackathon was not won by a programmer, it was won by a lawyer. Number 3 was a doctor. Number 2 was a techie, right? So the era of technical specialization deciding real world success is over, and for that you have to get out of the hubris of degrees, years of experience, certifications, and have to actually have the zero ego mindset to test yourself, understand where you stand, and keep upskilling. The second thing as a leader I feel is there is too much noise and fear around, right? If we can make the day-to-day of our teams easier by cutting that fear and noise and helping them have clarity on what they should focus on now, in the present, is a timeless thing which I believe a leader should always do, right? They say whatever may be the climate, the manager carries the weather, right? So they could be whatever may be happening outside, but as a leader, if you are able to create that clarity and that environment of trust for your team, they will excel no matter what you throw at them. So for me, those are the two challenges, those are the two leadership dimensions that I will continue to hold dear in this. Last question, which will again be something which we will go around the block, and then we'll take a few questions from the audience, of course. We've all seen enough shifts, whether it's the unfortunate 9/11 crisis, then the dot-com bubble, whatever it may be, etc. There are things which stay with us as lessons, and I would say timeless learnings, right? Which you are now convinced is also true in the current transformation we are in with AI. What would be that one thing? Just one thing that you would like to pick on from your past that has stayed with you along all the changes and transformations and challenges. Anybody can go first. I don't want to pick on a person. Whoever is ready with that, you can go first.
See, for me, it goes back to my previous answer. It is being able to adapt to change, right? Through all these events you mentioned, or through all the technological advancements we have seen, the biggest people who have benefited have been the early adopters and who have been open to change, who have created a environment within the organization also to change. It's not change can happen in pockets, right? You have to create the right environment, you have to create a culture. It has to become a part of what you do, right? And my analogy is very simple. Traffic enforcement, for example, right? I wouldn't mind jumping a red signal here, right? Probably because the fines are not.
It's been recorded, by the way.
I don't have any fines, by the way, on record. All clear. No tickets in the last 5 years. You wouldn't mind breaking a law because the consequences of breaking that law may not be bad. But you can't do that in Switzerland, for example. They have the highest fines. So why I'm saying this is enforcement is important. At the same time, the environment is also important, right? For that, I would say if you are, if you eat a chocolate in, say, a very busy place like KR Market, where will you throw the paper? You'll obviously throw it on the floor. But if you eat the same thing in Leela Palace, 7-star hotel, 5-star hotel lobby, where will you throw it? You will do the most stylish walk and go and throw it in the nearest dustbin. It's the same person, it's the same chocolate, but what influenced your behavior? It's the environment. So environment is important. Enforcement is also important. Enablement is also very important. So these three things play the key role in adopting to any change.
Three E's again.
Three E's again, just like our E3 framework.
Very nice. Anybody else?
So, again, don't want to go in depth, but what Naresh said, right? Like the early adopters, the adoption is the key thing here. So whenever there is any technical shift, as long as we embrace it, right, with the proper mindset and enablement, I think we are all good there. I would like to keep it simple in that way.
Yeah, I think the constant thing is always going to be change. I think as long as you are ready to adapt. People used to ask me questions, saying like, how come you actually stayed at the company for 20 years? I would actually probably ask a question again back to them. Why would you change? Right? If you want to change, then you change, right? But if change is coming to you, then and if you are adapting to it, you're fine. Okay. Somebody might ask a question again after, okay, what happened after 20 years that you have to change? So that's a different conversation. Different conversation. Yeah. So I think the point is very simple, right? It's constant thing is always going to be changed. Back in the days of when you were to travel, you had to book a ticket. How did you book a ticket? You would probably go to the counter and book it. Now you had applications like reservation applications. Now people don't even use reservation applications. They actually use Paytm to go and book tickets. Okay, so that's a change of behavior, right? Meaning people don't want to use multiple applications. So what they're actually doing is the closest touch point that I can provide that ability and functionality is what. So you need to observe what is the change, and you need to actually adapt to that. And today, people who I consider myself legacy, I would probably not be easy to go and do a ticket booking in Paytm and probably have a card to use in metro. Okay, so that is how but today's Gen Zs are not like that. They actually are looking for that, quick service, and that's what it is. So I think remember this, it is going to be changed, it's going to be constant. I think adding to what Naresh and Kiran said, we have to be quick adapters. Okay, and that's where today I would probably, if I were to leave one message with all of you, we are not here to compete with AI. Okay, I can tell you with my high level of confidence, AI is very powerful and strong in what we think. Okay, because it can actually create wonders. But you have to probably start looking at how to control it, okay? And you have to collaborate with it. So today I think Shishan made a point of human in the loop. But today's, if you just go and actually say, they're saying, no, not human in the loop, human on the loop. Meaning you're basically going to be an orchestrator, okay? Because with so much tools and technologies that is there at your disposal, right? You need to be now a great orchestrator that you can actually figure out, saying that how is this music getting played? How is this various systems in this environment getting played to achieve what? The desired outcome. How do you define that? Okay. So understand the problem at hand. Okay. Use the best of the technologies. Now you don't need to create it. There are tools and technologies today that are available at your disposal that you can actually start leveraging. Okay. You just need to actually be that master that you can actually start holding on to these and then orchestrating things. So I think that's what I would probably say.
So my learnings are very boring, right? And they have helped me in personal and professional times. So the first one is a term I'll borrow from one of my ex-bosses: situational fluency. Fluent in the situation you find yourself in, which is everything. If your dad is sleeping in the afternoon after a long day of work, don't fight with your younger sister. You will get beaten up. That is situational fluency, right? You are in a customer escalation call and you start talking about why you could not fix the bug. Bad idea. Situation demands you to act differently, right? So, and situational fluency comes from being close to the problem statement, close to the customer, close to your people, whatever. Now, number one timeless lesson for me is always work on your situational fluency. Number one. Number two is never assume. Assumption is the mother of all dash. Fill in the blanks, right? Never assume. These are two things which, if I remember more, probably I'll do much better in life. I struggle with it, but I think these are two timeless things. Always focus on having situational fluency. Know which situation you are in and then be fluent in it. And second, never assume. The assumption is the mother of dash. That's it. So now with that, we end this part of the conversation. Any questions that anybody has on the context of the conversation, happy to take them up. Please do raise your hand, and then we will not have a mic, but you will still speak loudly. Please go ahead.
Yeah, to summarize, we will talk about environment and capabilities. So, how do you go in the product engineering segment? So, you need to build some capabilities in the products and take them to the GTM and showcase to the customer. So, in that way, any plans for that, and to build the environment, as I said, to the employees who work on those capabilities, so that they can gain the knowledge on AI, data security.
Oh, we have already a lot of our solutions or platforms which are in production with our clients. So for the agentic AI, we have the agentic AI workbench. So this is a solution which has multiple pre-built agents which are accelerating the deployment. Right? It could be an agent to read an inbox. It could be an agent to process a transaction in SAP. It could be an agent to extract information from multiple PDF forms, for example. A whole lot of these accelerators are built, and we are today automating business processes end to end using our agentic AI workbench. So that's a tool or a solution or a platform, whatever you want to call it, which is already something we are deploying and seeing a lot of benefits from a client standpoint. Second is the same underlying agents are used in software engineering as well. So we have built agents to be able to summarize conversations and build business requirement documents, summarize conversations and build user stories. We have testing agents to test code, unit test, integration test, so on and so forth. So to summarize, we have built reusable agents both in enabling business process automation as well as in enabling engineering automation, building a core piece of it. Then we have a conversational chatbot called Infer, right? Infer trains on your organization's knowledge base. It could be, we have already deployed this in support. Today we do tech support for data centers where we are helping clients triage server issues, network issues, so on and so forth. We are able to ingest logs and pinpoint at the root cause and identify what part has failed within seconds, which used to take hours earlier. So Infer as a chatbot is being able to ingest our client's data ecosystem, provide specific answers to multiple business problems. And that's another platform which we have deployed extensively. So these, couple of these are some of our flagship accelerators or tools which are already in production and which are scaling significantly as we speak.
And also, you are a senior member of the team, you are providing technical leadership. You know on ground what is missing from an environment because you might be experiencing it, right? Please reach out to the folks here or to the HR if you feel comfortable and share what could help the people more, right? Because we are a small organization, we probably will not have as many people or layers of organization to have the sensors on the ground what's happening. If you practically feel that there's a gap we can fill in giving the best environment for an individual to be successful, please talk, share. We will work together to make it happen. That's all I have. Any other questions, please? Please, Puneet.
Since every organization or a business has a basic objectives, it is all together different objectives, but the key three objectives what I see is like one is technology adoption, and the second is all about customer or client centric, and third is all about the human values or human centric culture. So since AI is evolving, how Innova is looking at human centric culture to ensure that that is being balanced with this AI evolving.
You're asking this question in person in the office. I'm sorry, I just couldn't help it, yeah. But yeah, I'll let it be mine. How will you make this more balance the AI with the human aspect of it? Right? We still don't have any R&R for AI, right? We are only giving awards to humans.
Yes.
Deepu?
Yes.
So two things I've mentioned now. Third, you guys can talk.
See, there will be no compromise on the human values, right? So all the 6 values which we are mentioning, right? So that is, we are sticking with that, right? And the reason why we have mentioned that is always like we live with that and we work and talk those things, right? How much ever AI comes and then takes the technology and all, those values will not change, right? Because those are the values on which the organization is built, right? So I don't think whatever the revolution comes, the technical revolution, these are going to change.
One thing I'll tell you, Puneet, jokes apart, right? You've been around not for that long, but if you see, we are not in the process of, discarding our talent, searching for an AI talent. If you look at the effort, it is to upskill, upgrade the people we have who have stayed with us to be better professional in this AI-enabled era. That's a commitment from the top. So we know this is something impacting all of us. We will get better at it together, and we'll do that by investing in the set of people we have. Now there are instances where there are limits to that investment versus what is coming out of it. That's a separate conversation. That will be in any performance-based organization. But otherwise, our commitment is not to adopt the latest AI technology out there, but to bring whatever is most relevant to our client's problem through the people we have. So if you look at the investments we are making in our L&D, certifications, mentoring, 101s also, some of the forums that you are part of that we do, right, just so that you are aware of what's happening in other parts of the organization. These are designed and created to make sure that people are connected as people. And you're not speaking to a chatbot to say what's the new project. But I could have, it's what Shomik does for our 11 a.m. meetings, right, on Wednesdays. I could have easily created a chatbot and said, go ask which is the new proposal. But you have an individual who leads that effort along with Naresh and the team, represent that particular practice, talk about it, you have an opportunity to. So we are being very intentional in creating those people forums while we are adopting technology where it makes sense. But if there are areas where you feel that there is a need to tilt the scale back towards the human aspect and we may have gone the other side, please do bring it up. Right? But I would like you guys also add anything to what I've said.
I would probably add a couple of points. This is my third day at Innova, okay, and I'm still kind of like the blind person touching the elephant. I have to still to open my eyes and then start looking at things. But this is what I probably say. I think we are not a very big organization. Okay, we are very small compared to what our industry peers are. So I think what we are probably looking for is the agility and nimbleness with each one of us to say that, for example, if you have an idea that, we can do something, or let's say if you worked on something new or you learned something new and you want to probably showcase it and that can bring value to your project or let's say to the entire organization. I think that's what I would probably say that, you should surface it up. And I think as leaders, we will have the responsibility to have that interaction so that we can gain and learn from it. Okay, but I would say it should always be, both ways. So that way we will, also learn from you, and you can also probably tap into what is required. Okay, that's something fun. And I'll probably give you an example. I think I'll probably relate this to the previous question the gentleman asked about product relation and all that. I think yesterday I was speaking to one of the team members who's a business analyst and working on one of our logistics client. And what I could actually make out of the conversation, right? We've been supporting this client for quite some time, and they're working on an enhancement which talks about how do they provide a routing solution. That's an enhancement. Okay, my simple question was, okay, whatever solution that we are developing, is it something that we've already given to the customer, or is that solution with us? Okay, and where they're probably interfacing. And the answer that I got was, the solution resides with us. Okay, they're only giving input and we provide the output. So the know-how of that solution is with us. To me, that's the intellectual property. That's the know-how that we actually create. How do we, now we probably did with one client, but how do we actually start replicating this other common problems or patterns? I think that's where we have to start looking at productionizing. That's where I think when you talk about the chatbot solution, info, so on and so forth, I think these did not get plugged out and then say, okay, we'll create something and do. Okay, this has actually happened over a period of time, right? So that's what we have to start having these conversations. Okay, and that's where I would say the maturity of this organization will develop. Okay, so I think the rest of the thing, right? Compensation or rewards recognition, all those things will actually happen automatically, because that's fundamental, right? You are contributing to something which is of a greater value, and that's exactly what customers are looking for. You are not just putting people and asking to provide effort. If you can actually deliver value to the customers, customer is obviously going to take a look at it. Okay, you may not have the budget today, but after 6 months when he has the budget, he will actually first remember you, because you solve his biggest pain point or you actually created value for him. That's all matters. I think that's how we should look at it and then take it. I mean, those are my 2 cents, and I could be probably off.
Thank you. So if anybody else, otherwise I'll go ahead. So this is for Prashant actually. Prashant, I really liked your vantage point on a few of the topics we discussed. I want to go back to the basics and understand from you. If you want to start in your career today in an engineering form, what are you going to learn first? What do you think? What should a fresher do with it at this area?
I think we talked about it. I mean, I started my AA career 2 weeks back, being hands-on. So this is what today, and I would say there are, today's generation, right, is very impatient. Okay, they don't like to hear stories. They don't like to hear narratives. They say, okay, give me this, and what should I do, and I'll do and go off. That's what today's. But I think what you probably miss out is the wisdom or the experience of what others have gone through. Okay, so I would say always hone your technical skills, because that's very important. Whatever. When I'm saying technical skills, I'm probably looking at fresher coming to the engineering department, but it is applicable for any fresher in any department. I think be very true and expert in your core skills. Okay, and I think as the gentleman highlighted, right, bring in that human touch. So don't think that you can solve everything. You collaborate with others. Show that ability where you want to lend your hand and say, okay, hey, I'm there. What can we do as a team? I think that's what is going to be important. And leverage the wisdom of your seniors or experienced people. Okay? Because even if they don't know how to do it right, but they'll tell you what will go wrong. Okay? And I think that is an important aspect of what you can tackle.